Hi, everybody. So we are together. This is Friday. And for those of you that weren't with us on Monday, we gathered and did something a little bit different. We really were in the flow, paying attention to these wild waters of the second chakra. And rather than doing the teaching that we had prepared and we intended to do that night, we did a deep check-in, and it was really beautiful. For those of you that weren't there, like I said, we really missed you and felt you. And Granny Jay and I are excited to come together today to record this teaching that we've prepared for you as we finish up and come to completion of the second chakra. So, Granny Jay, here we are. What a wild wave.
Yes,
Yeah. hmm
yeah. Between Riley and three workmen in a bathroom next door, it's sort of interesting. Yes,
Yes, well, and a confused partner that came, it's life is giving us a lot of really good material to work with.
very good. A lot of rocks
A
in
lot
the
of rocks.
rapids.
A lot of rocks. Yep, and very strong rapids. So
Sure.
I'm gonna hand it over to you to get us started.
Well, I want to pick up and talk a little bit more about the energy system. Originally, I made the point that the fourth chakra was the only one where you had energy flowing out of the front and back. And that's not really true. Um, it's true in one aspect, but it's not true in all aspects. The flow of energy is rather complex, and we're just sort of looking at some of it by bits and pieces. So, Amy, if you put up that new drawing, I want to look at the flow of energy in our body using this diagram. And this won't be the last one we'll ever see on the flow of energy, but we're adding another piece to it.
I've got it up, Granny Jay.
Okay, so if you take a look at it, you can see the seven dots, each one which represents one of the chakras, starting with the first one being red. We're sitting in the orange one now. We're going to move to the yellow one, the third one, the green one's fourth, and the fifth, sixth, and seventh. And if you look at this flow of energy, you can see it quite differently. Um, let's look on your left side first, and you'll notice that the energies of the first chakra and that of the seventh chakra has a line connecting. And that says there is a relationship between those energies. The seventh chakra is flowing down here, helping the first, and the first is saying, help, help, help to the seventh one. We're sitting in the orange one now, the second chakra. And on Monday night when we met, there was a lot of things showing that the second chakra was coming up here to the sixth one, where our guides sit and send us little messages. And sometimes we hear them and we follow them, and sometimes we don't. Then the third chakra that we'll be picking up in early June is connected to the fifth chakra, which is communication. And third one is about our willpower. And to express our willpower, we use a lot of communication. And so those two are connected. So each of the chakra has a helper. Um, if we look at the bottom three chakras, you will see that they are connected to the fourth one. Uh, The first one's connected to the fourth one, the second one is, the third one is, and those energies all deal with our physical universe. Those are energies of our physical universe, and they all go through the fourth chakra for processing, because that's where love resides. If you look at the top three, you'll see that each of them is connected to the fourth chakra, and that's our spiritual energy up there, and all the spiritual is all connected. So you can see the energy flow in the body isn't between the chakras isn't just between them up and down, like we've been talking to the Susumna and the Pingala the, and Ida. There's other flows besides that. We started with the original of Susuma because of the fact that that is the major energy flow in the body. And I wanted to make sure we had that one going. So uh, I think, Amy, that's probably going to be okay um, for us at this point with this particular flow of energy. And we'll keep this one in mind because next time we're together, we're going to put another one over the top of this because there's a really interesting aspect about energy when you take a look at this one. Okay, but think about it for a while. Okay, I think we probably need to move on to the other aspects of that second chakra.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay.
Get out of the water flow, get into the other aspects.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. All right. Well, we're going to start as we do that. We're looking at the pleasure principle. All entities, human and other, have a tendency to move toward pleasure and away from pain. This is innate within us, just as is the survival instinct. Pleasure enables us to move more deeply into the temple of the body. We feel fulfilled. We create a foundation for power and love and creativity and meditative concentration, all aspects of higher chakras, higher consciousness. Pleasure, an aspect of the second chakra's duality, is a two-edged sword. But in any chakra, balancing requires opening to its particular energy without becoming excessively attached. Non attachment is a necessary quality to reach higher consciousness. For me, non attachment is that I hold nothing as an absolute. Everything can be redefined, looking at it from a different awareness, explained by a different modality, so it becomes part of something bigger. And I find it interesting that when we checked in on Monday, this experience of impermanence was very present among
It was. Yeah.
came up a lot. And so this is what we're talking about is living with this awareness of impermanence, not getting attached, not getting addicted. Yeah. Pleasure and emotional sensation are processed in your lower brain, beginning with the limbic system, which controls the hypothalamus, which in turn controls your hormonal levels. So in humans, not other animals, there's a segregation between the cerebral cortex, the mind, and the limbic system, the emotion. This enables us to separate thoughts from emotion. This is both a plus and a minus. You can look at, and I would just want to pause here because really it's like we can look to the natural kingdom, to the animal kingdom, and see how prey and predator, how that all plays out. And for us, sometimes when we're not balanced and when we're not aware, we can be very separate from the violence and the harm that we create in our world. We're not
Right.
connected to it. And so
Yeah.
you see this in the wars that all the rape. It's violence is a pattern in creation, but it's not experienced as violence. And so this is what we're talking about here, what it means to be human, that these spheres are they're separate. And so how do we hold them as separate and also in relationship to one another?
That's a big job for us to learn to do. And as we grow in consciousness, we learn to do that.
Mhm. Well, and just as a side note, Granny J, I'm like wanting to just bring in my experience as a mother here, learning to do this as a mother with some of the stuff that's kicking up with Thomas. So
Yeah.
for me, what this looks like holding it in balance is to be able to see suffering, feel it, have compassion, and not take it on and move into this savior, also this domination supremacy kind of. story that we have. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
you can't live someone else's life. You have to live your own,
mhm,
you
right.
know, and it's harmful when you do that,
Mhm.
you know, when you try to live someone else's life, it's harmful to both people. Yeah.
To both people, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so pleasure, back to pleasure, and really like feeling into that healthy pleasure, that movement is one of the steps on the consciousness path. It's one of the first really important steps. It's inviting consciousness to travel through the entire nervous system and to reach outward toward others. Pleasure invites surrender, a necessary process for spiritual awakening. And there is that word surrender. We keep coming back to it over and over again. It's the essential act on the path to higher consciousness. So, our second chakra has two essential steps toward higher consciousness: non attachment, pause for effect, pause for effect,
Yes.
and surrender. And these are two essential steps. So pleasure flows as impulses through the body, creating a rhythmic, coherent pattern which soothes the whole system. We tune into our senses just like tuning into a special channel on TV. And sensation is a valuable information source at all levels of consciousness. Yeah. Sensation is a valuable information source at all levels of consciousness. Really good information can flow in. It gives us raw data, which can be analyzed and stored. Unfortunately, and really tragically, with great cost, our culture has taught us to repress our need for pleasure. I think it's like you can see that the demon here in the second chakra is guilt. So, because of this repression, we have an unhealthy relationship with pleasure and opening ourselves up to that and receiving those impulses, that information that is wanting to flow in. And this repression can once again shut down our developing mind and our body connections. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I play pleasure and joy is what one needs to strive for.
Mhm.
Yeah. You know, honest pleasure and joy. Well, let's move on to emotions, which enables us to move outward, hence to evolve awareness, consciousness to our body. This flow of consciousness charges one body, cleanses it, and heals it. Does all three aspects. Emotion is essentially movement. Chronic tension develops when we repeatedly block emotional energy movement, but release happens when we let that energy flow on through. So stretching exercises are great. Yoga is great to get rid of that tension. Think of emotion as a complex instinctual reactions to pleasure and to pain. So let's look at this from the perspective of a baby's world. In their world, emotional expression is the only language in their world. Now, just think of that. Babies communicate only via their emotion. Okay, I know that they can't speak. They do get to where they can understand words. But how did they communicate with us emotionally? They cry. Um, and I'm about to run out of energy. Let me plug up my thing. Uh, well, if I can see where it goes in, we'll be in business here. There we go. So let's hope that works. Okay. Uh, crying is, as you know, their major original means of communicating that they're wet or they want food or they want attention. Uh, they curiously look about. Their eyes aren't focusing at first. It takes them some time to learn to focus their eyes and actually see. And laughing. So crying and laughing and then looking around is about all that they have. This is uh, when uh, when fear and they learn, gosh, this is when they learn from their emotion through their feelings. They are learning via their emotions. Causes one to stop and reflect on the kind of mirroring we adult caretakers display toward children. The baby can pick up our attention from instinctual patterns that we have, the ones we haven't released. So here's the point about archetypes here. We can work with the archetypal patterns that condition our lives to evolve beyond just the conditioned pattern. And so we can be a creator versus just being a victim. And the mirroring we provide young children is incredibly important. I imagine, Amy, you've had a lot of experience that as a mother, the mirroring that you do are dead and probably are still doing in multiple ways, right?
Yes, as I've referenced earlier with Thomas. Yeah, my
Yeah.
21-year-old boy. Yeah.
Yeah. Pain is feedback, calling our attention to our decision making and our actions. The repression of pleasure creates a really a deprivation in the body that, and it demands, because our body is demanding that we give it more conscious attention than it really deserves. We need satisfaction and resolution so our awareness can evolve safely upward to a broader perspective.
Mm. Yeah. It is, yeah, I'm just sitting with that. It's so huge.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it is. It is huge.
Yeah. And I think also part of it is that for me, because the way our relationship with pleasure and pain, we see really both as a problem, particularly pain. And so we shut off from it and we want to, I mean, in mental health, we want to treat it, diagnose it, numb it, medicate it, get it, stop it,
Get rid of it. Actually,
get
get
rid
rid
of
of it.
it. And then on the other hand, the same is true, of course, with pleasure. It's like, we're scared of it, all this guilt around it. But to be curious about it and to see both as giving us really important information is totally, it changes everything.
It really does change everything.
Yeah, it really does change everything, right? Okay, so now on to sexuality. A sacred ritual of union through the celebration of difference. This is one of the important aspects of the second chakra. Sexuality is a dance that balances, it restores, renews, reproduces. And again, unfortunately, because of the culture that we live in, we either repress or we exalt it. It's this Puritan kind of history is very much still influencing our relationship with sexuality. And you see this played out in how it's represented all over the place in pop culture. Um, Rarely will you see real love making, it's much more objectified pornography, you know, all of this kind of thing. We all know this. Um, and, because of this in the way that we've diminished the power and the promise of what healthy sexuality can do, something really vital and natural is being taken away. And it's being used as an implement, as a weapon of control. The more stringent the taboo, the more violent the society. So, for the above reasons, sexuality is an important essence to understand and preserve. And another reason is that sexuality is also closely related to higher consciousness. This perception permeates many mystical paths, as expressed in commitments and like practices around celibacy, um, and how that's been only linked with males because of patriarchy and because males were the only ones seen as able to access that higher spiritual enlightenment. Um, so the way that we relate to sexuality is really It's so vital. Depressing it decreases the life force itself and deprives us of the incredible pleasure and learning experience that comes from a relationship. So, relationship, which by necessity involves more than just the second chakra, can be a profound impetus for growth. We extend our experience by uniting with one another. Within our bodies, we are quite individual, but as we climb up that chakra column, up that tower, the boundaries become more and more diffuse. And the realization that we are all one becomes more and more apparent, more real to us. The path to enlightenment is often a matter of breaking through these illusions of separateness. And sexuality opens the way for dissolving these boundaries in a physical way and also in a spiritual way. Sexuality is the resolution and the celebration of our differences. And another aspect of the second chakra that we want to share is nurturance. Nurturance is the final summation of sexuality and a fundamental need of the body, the mind, and the soul. Nurturance means caring for, feeding with energy and love and touch. It's a blissful transcendence of warmth and security. The simple act of touching is of extreme importance to the healthy functioning of the human organism. Consider the skin is a layer of the nervous system, and through touch, the boundary is broken, permeated by another, and our whole internal system is enhanced and stimulated. Babies who have adequate touch and mothering grow and have a greater emotional stability than those who've been deprived. You know, I see this so much right now in the nursing homes where there's just no touch, no loving
Yeah,
touch, you know, very
yeah.
loving touch. And I find it again really interesting that as a clinical counsel going in, that's like one of the no-nos. You don't touch. So I get to,
But that's terrible. I
oh,
mean,
I'm gonna
that's
get
absolutely contrary to what is needed.
I break that rule all the time with awareness of what it is that I'm doing. But, you know, as I speak here about the nurturance and the importance of touch and sexuality, I'm reminded of like really what it feels like to go again from this root chakra, where it's this oneness, this solid one, into this space in the second chakra where we're being brought into communion with others. And so, like, more, that's like all of this just feels, you know, that's what's happening here.
Yeah, big mixing bowl.
Big mixing bowl. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, yeah, and just, you know, all of this is, you know, you can feel too this pleasurable stimulation adds stability and trust to this development. Emotional satisfaction and fulfillment, be it nurturance, pleasure, sexual release, it's generally soothing to the whole system. Simple act of touch, of reaching out to soothe is healing is the healing aspect of the second chakra. Yeah.
yeah.
I think too, Granny J, about as a collective, what it meant to go through COVID.
Well, I think we saw the absence of touch, the absence of interaction, the
Yeah.
absence of eye to eye nurturance
Mhm.
didn't happen,
Right.
or, or even just pleasurable interaction around dinner tables didn't happen.
So much. And so, and you can still feel the impact of that now. I mean, in fact, I know like um, in schools with young kids, we're still talking about the developmental impact of that isolation that we collectively went through as a race, as a human race globally. And
Yeah,
so it's interesting, what is wanting to, for me, the question that comes then is like, what is wanting to be healed now? And how did that moment in time, what did it point to that needed healing?
but one of the things it pointed and made even more important that we put down our phones when we're with other people. I don't know how many times I've been in restaurants where I've looked around and people are sitting in a restaurant. They're out with their friends, having a good time, and all of them have their faces in their phones.
Mhm.
I mean, they're so used to being isolated
Mhm.
with just the phone and the internet that that feels safer to them than one-to-one communication with another. And yet, without that human love flowing that you can feel, through the biofuels, without being able to feel that, my heavens, we become less human.
Right. Instead of using that as an opportunity to see and to heal some of what was wanting to be healed, we've just continued to reproduce that. We've
Yeah,
carried that
that's
forward in our lives, And you're right. I think the power of this chakra for me, and I'm feeling it in this very moment with you on this screen, and when we gathered on Monday in that check-in call, the power of this chakra is it brings us into connection with other life outside of us. And it can be scary and overwhelming.
that,
And
that connection, spirit to spirit.
Mhm,
That's spirit to spirit.
mhm.
And you can have that connection, like, as you say, over Zoom. Our meeting on Monday night certainly was abundant with spirit.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Right. And so I think from a higher consciousness level as we grow, for me, what's powerful is being able to look at some of what happens in this second chakra and see it as not, it's more, maybe it's more than just our sex drive. Maybe it's more than just this erotic, that it is erotic or that these energies are moving and that it can bring us into growth when we work with it consciously
As nurturance.
as nurturance, right?
Nurture each other, nurture each other. Um, that's so important. Absolutely so important. Listening is a big part of that. Learning to sit and listen.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, laughing's good too. I like good laughter.
Thank God. Yeah. Okay.
So
Well,
you took my part on nurturance. I'll take your part on wisdom. How's that?
perfect. I was just going to say the same thing.
See, we're in coherence.
Yeah.
So the last bit of wisdom is that the second chakra has the first stirrings of higher consciousness and the development of greater sensitivity toward others. This is called clairsentience. This is the ability to sense other people's emotions. It's also referred to as empathy. This is not information recognized by our cognitive abilities of the brain. This is an experience that feels that's more like a feeling. It's a sensation that you have. Um, you may or may not be aware that you're picking up another person's feelings, but when you walk up to someone else, or even when you're talking on the phone, you can pick up their feelings. But regardless of whether you realize you're doing it or not, your body is going to respond.
Mhm.
Uh, it was just built like that. Um, I can remember, you could walk, sometimes you walk through a store and there is an event happening. You can't see it, but you can feel it.
Mhm.
And so a lot of times you find yourself going toward seeing what it is.
Mhm.
Maybe it's to verify that I see it, but we pick up all kinds of information. I guess that's one reason I think a lot about where I walk in. Before I walk into some place, I try to figure out what kind of feelings am I going to have in there and what kind of response I want to make and
Mhm.
um, make to it. Um, that a lot of times our culture, when you walk into a setting of a group of people, a lot of times you find yourself walking in and sort of just standing there for a minute
Mhm.
and picking it up. And before you know it, you can walk into it and become one of them, following the cultural patterns, or you can walk into it as yourself and decide how you want to interact. Those two things are really different.
Mhm.
And clairsentience gives you a lot of information about that. Uh, mothers who know when their children are in an accident or something. Sometimes that happens. Perhaps you had an experience. Well, this is the party one. When you're having a sentient feeling, it's important that you are grounded. As this brings us into the centrality of our body and helps us sort out whose energy, what is the energy going on here. It's necessary to have an awareness of the other and awareness of the self. So a good dose of common sense should be present. Only from within ourselves can we judge. Do you feel the biofields talking here? Got biofields galore going on here.
Mhm.
Well, this is a big part of it. It's something we should nourish.
Mhm. Right. And it reminds me of what I was saying to you earlier, learning to nourish can also mean protecting ourselves and not, w- not taking on other people's energy. I think that,
One has to protect themselves. You cannot take on other people's energies.
Mhm.
You know, we're separate entities. We can have compassion, we can give nurturance, but we can't be them and do it for them. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, again, just pausing for effect. It's actually really counter to how we've understood what helping is. It's very
It is.
counter to how priests are trained, counselors are trained, doctors are trained. We're so conditioned to save. And you can feel yeah, all the patterns around that. But we're talking about a whole other way of relating. And it really does come back to that simple but really difficult guidance that Jesus gave to love another and yourself.
And that means you have to be fully present with them in time, in that period of time, fully present.
Right. Yeah. So this
I
gives us,
think we're at the end of our second chakra. I think we're shared all the big points about it.
yes, I think so. So this is it, folks. So we've got a lot to work with over the next couple weeks. Our final session for spring 5 is going to be on June the 2nd. And we're going to do a similar share out for that session. Actually, Granny J, you and I haven't actually clarified and confirmed this, but that's the plan, right? Is that fifth session is the share out again.
That's what we generally do. Yeah.
So, as you
Pull it
prepare,
all together.
yeah. So as a reminder, similar to what we did with winter, that whole session is going to be devoted to us sharing because it's not just for us, but it's for the collective since we're on this journey together. Each of us will have about 5 minutes to do that. It'll be, again, very similar to that last closing session of winter. This is our chance to,
Yeah. Yeah. In some ways, it's like spring. You know, the buds have opened up, they have expanded, they're now here in life. Well, and they're aware that there are other things are out there because they're releasing pollen, which I know very much. Uh, so that's just like us. We're finding more out about the fact that we're surrounded by lots of people, we're interacting with them. And so let's see how that's playing out now.
see. Let's see how it's playing out. So it's going to be really fun to share. Um, in preparation, we invite you to check in with your partner between now and then. Just a little check in. I think it'll be supportive for us to, as we were saying, mirror back to one another. What we're experiencing and coming to know. So lean into each other and we'll see you on the 2nd. And have a wonderful long Memorial Day weekend.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
fun time. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else, Granny J, before we wrap up? Before we close it?
Uh, now, did you send out the exercise stuff?
I did.
Okay, so it's just the stuff in Ida and Tengala that we're going to send out now. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
All right. Bye, everybody. Take good care. See you soon.
bye.